Coming up on Photography Online, we test teleconverters to see if they're worth the money. I show you how to print a digital file in a traditional manner. And the team are ticking off as many British icons as they can on the penultimate day of their challenge. Welcome to the September episode of Photography Online, which means summer is pretty much over and autumn is just around the corner. That isn't bad news though, as autumn is many photographers' favourite season, especially for those of you who are into landscapes. But no matter what kind of photography you enjoy or what level you're at, we're confident that this is the best place to expand your knowledge and skills. Now, for those of you who have been following our shows so far in 2025, you'll be aware that I set a fairly demanding challenge for the Photography Online team. Now, we've only got one more show remaining after this for season 25, so they need to get a move on if they hope to fill all 12 spaces on the watch face. As always, a big thank you to Accurist Watches who are helping the team to keep time during the challenge.
Previously on the Great British Icons Photo Challenge.
I want you to try to fit this list of 24 British iconic subjects into the 12 positions on the watch face, taking each shot exactly on the stroke of each hour.
Anything wrong with that cow?
Yes, it's not next to a phone box.
Yeah, so that's a problem.
We've got literally a few seconds, eye line straight up there.
There's a pub a couple of miles over that way.
We might just have time.
Hurry up, Harry.
Are you in need of a wench?
3, 2, 1.
Damn it, just enjoy the sun. 3, 2, 1. Oh.
We had so far managed to tick off a total of 18 Great British Icons, meaning we still had 6 more to go. There were now only 4 available spaces on the watch face: 12, 1, 4 and 7. As it was already lunchtime, we thought we'd tackle the 4 and 7 positions. The first plan was to attempt to get the classic car and the thatched cottage ticked off for 4 PM. We had a couple of hours to find a scene which included both icons. The thatch wasn't proving a problem, but the classic car had to be British, and Britain doesn't seem to make many cars these days, let alone classic ones.
If that Mini was 20 years older, then we'd have the shot right there, but sadly that's not a British car, that's a German car. Move on, we'll see what else we can find.
Yep, German.
So, another potential candidate,
Yep.
but this time with a yellow German car, and Tesla.
To be more efficient, we split up, and while Nick and Marcus went off to find a thatched cottage, I went in search of the car. Could do with a convertible, mind you, that would be nice, but not really the right car. Look at that, shocking. Even the postie drives a French car. After walking up and down street after street and being met by everything except for a good old British car, my quest provided the most iconic of them all.
Hey, she's a beauty.
Now it was just a case of sweet-talking my way into the driving seat.
Hello.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Is this your car?
Yes.
Any chance I could drive it?
No.
I explained why we wanted this gentleman's car, and although he wasn't keen on letting a total stranger drive it away, I mean, talk about sceptical, he did, however, agree to drive it for us.
It'd be great if exactly on the stroke of the hour we could just get it passing a thatched cottage. If you've got just a few minutes to spare, I'd be really very grateful.
Yeah, no problem.
Really?
Okay.
Brilliant, thanks.
Adam, by the way.
Jake.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Marcus and I had found a good thatched cottage to use as a background. It was now just a case of identifying the best place to position the camera.
Yeah, of course, it's always in the middle of the road where you want to be, but we can get the other side of this maybe and get out of people's ways. We've even used these teasels in the foreground. So we've got quite a grey, boring sky.
Yeah.
So I would say I mean, forget the car for now, but I would say just go slightly bit tighter than that, try and reduce that sky, because it doesn't matter if you clip the trees. I wouldn't even worry about, when we actually do the shot, I wouldn't even worry about clipping the thatch like that. I mean, it's irrelevant, that will still do the job, because the car, I foresee the car being the subject of this. Yes. The thatch is just the background. Yep. So obviously these cars driving past now are way too big in frame, but that's, if we get a car organised, we can obviously position it wherever we want. Yep. So you know what will happen, we'll get everything set up at exactly the time when we need to take the shot, a white van, and you'll end up with that as a shot. Yeah.
While we waited to see if James was going to deliver on the car, we did a couple of panning test shots with other passing traffic, but there were a few problems.
So that one's 1/30th of a second.
Yeah. So what we need is that, and then...
Oi! Delivery, delivered.
Oh, nice.
Nice, sir.
Hello, sir. Right.
Adam, by the way.
Hi, Adam. Can you drive up and down then, and we'll do a few practice shots?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Give it a go.
Let's go.
That'll do.
Trust James to find like the 007 car.
While James was turning around, I made an executive decision to change our location in order to get rid of the hideous road sign.
Okay, see, this gives a better angle on it anyway.
Yeah. Setting up on the other side of the bridge solved the problem and made getting the car composed easier too.
So we've got everything sorted out as far as the photo's concerned, but the real challenge in this shot is getting the car to be in the right place at the right time. So its starting point is there, about 100 metres down the road. So we're going to time how long it takes to get from that point to the bridge so that we can back time it to the top of the hour. Okay, you ready? And go.
It turns out it was 12 seconds. So when the time comes, the car needs to do exactly the same journey, starting at 3:59 and 48 seconds, so that it's crossing the bridge at exactly 4 o'clock.
So we've put the camera on a tripod and we've made sure that the top plate is perfectly vertical, so as we pan the camera, it doesn't go on an angle. We've got obviously control of the car and the speed it comes over the bridge. So we just need to pray that when the time comes, we don't have a traffic jam of cars coming from either direction, because my experience of standing here for the last 15 minutes is that you get a clear road for about 30 seconds and then traffic comes from both directions. So maybe there's traffic lights up the road or something. But anyway, we'll do a couple of test runs and then we'll go for the real thing. Right, phone's going to ring in 30 seconds apparently, and then just keep everything crossed. Here comes the phone call, Nick. I'll put it on speaker.
This is your
go.
call from Accurist. On the third stroke, the time according to Accurist will be precisely 4 o'clock.
That's not bad timing, even if I say so myself. So we had our 4 o'clock shot in the bag, with the thatched cottage and the classic car ticked off the list. But the watch was still ticking, and we had to get our 7 o'clock shot done today, which meant we only had 3 hours to sort it out.
After a bit of driving around, which may or may not have involved stopping at a country pub for a light refreshment, we located a cricket match which was taking place not too far away. So we set about getting something organised for 7 p.m.
Welcome to Hampshire and the home of the Hampshire Hogs Cricket Club. They've kindly let us come and film today. There's some kind of big shindig going on behind us here, Harry. They're certainly not let you in anyway.
Hopefully underdressed.
Yeah, it's a bit embarrassing,
and a bit
smelly. Yeah, anyway, never mind about all that. The sun's out. They're having tea at the moment, but they will be out on the pitch very soon. And time is a ticking, and we're getting low on slots. So
we've shot 6 o'clock, we've shot 8 o'clock.
Yes.
I mean,
so what lies between those? 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
And it's coming up.
Yeah, well, shadows are drawing out. Sun's not going down yet, but I mean, it's early evening, so we've got to get it done at 7.
We've got to get it done at 7, and the players will be out after tea, so it gives us a little bit of time to set things up. Now, we're missing an icon. Okay, and that is the umbrella because it blew away on the beach.
It didn't work on the beach.
Yeah, well, it blew inside out. It broke. Let's be honest.
It really broke.
It was a proper shambles. Anyway, never mind. We've got some sunshine, which is great for cricket. But I thought, rather than using this as some kind of parasol, why don't we pop it up? Because when you think about cricket, what do you think about?
Rain, obviously.
Correct. It's normally raining, and for once, it's not. So, rain, umbrella, 2 cricketers underneath, game in the background. Visualise a shower just passing over and rain
really well.
Streaming down an umbrella as 2 cricketers watch their colleagues in the background. It's all about visualisation, Harry, remember that?
I'm not sure whether Harry was visualising someone standing in a manly teapot pose, but hey, just in case.
Are you sure it's a portrait shot, not a landscape, by the way? Because there'll be 2. Remember, you've got another face here, visualisation. Here's the face, right here. They'll be standing looking at each other like this, and we'll ping a bit of light from somewhere.
Admittedly, Harry was better at standing like a man who is confident in his sexuality.
Yeah, about there.
So we used him to do a lighting test with a reflector to lift the shadows, therefore allowing my exposure to hold the highlights.
Have a look, we've got the trees there.
Oh no, that's okay. Yeah, I was just worried about that.
2 guys there. We can move them left and right a little bit. It's hard to know until we get them actually in the shot, because then one of us has to reach in.
How are you going to do that?
Well, I don't
get
know.
An arm out?
Yeah. So you reckon we should go in super tight then? That's a very good point. So if we go in super tight...
Just move keep them roughly the same place, and yeah. Because you need
use the top of the umbrella, then you can come in over the top of the umbrella.
Are we going to see the water?
I'm going to have to come in over the top of the umbrella. Well, you should see the water, yeah. Especially if they angle the umbrella forwards.
With Harry being vertically challenged, he needed some help getting the height needed to pour the rain over our subjects, something which was luckily on tap. It was all going swimmingly well, but that is always a sure sign that something is about to go wrong. And, as predicted...
Harry, we've got a bit of an issue, as ever, being super confident about this and having everything fully under control.
Well, we thought we had plenty of time.
These shadows have encroached upon the pitch.
Well, we've lost our light just
there. Our light's gone there, but more importantly, our shadows are on the pitch here. We've lost the light we were originally going to shoot, so those 2 or 3 scenarios we talked through have gone. Right. So unless you want to go and stand on the pitch...
Well, we can't.
We can't. So we've got to go all the way over there. So come on, let's get going.
Just get everything.
This is typical.
So with only a few minutes to go until the 7 o'clock call, we had to recamp and start the whole process again.
A little bit easier, I think.
I went off to get the most important aspects of the photo, the subjects, in the form of Will, Huey and Joe, who despite all being recently bowled out were surprisingly upbeat, which was just as well as it was about to start raining.
The next thing we need to do, before you pour, Harry, before you pour, Joe, just want a big shadow across your face.
Yeah.
There, thank you very much. We have literally a minute to go here.
Okay.
Before that phone's going to ring. Are you ready? You are. Super. Fold your arms. Will, fold your arms, Will. There you go. Perfect. Just going to check everything's working. Yep. 30 seconds. Right. Here we go. We're off. We're rolling. Just listen for the beeps. Now drop. Pour, Harry. That central panel. Go on. Further. Lean in further.
Will be precisely 7 o'clock.
So we now only had the 12 and 1 o'clock positions to fill, and somehow had to get in the 3 remaining icons of Big Ben, the Beatles and Monty Python. Okay, Big Ben is easy enough, but the other 2?
Next time on the Great British Icons Photo Challenge.
We're always telling people when you do nighttime photography, don't wait until it's so late that there's no colour in the sky, and of course it's midnight, so we're kind of breaking our own rule, but there's nothing we can do about that.
Well, that's Ruth's fault, that's not our fault.
This photo was taken before any of us were born.
That's amazing, because you're quite old.
Don't laugh.
Right, come on, look, there's no time to take the piss. Let's get on with this.
So very much looking forward to the conclusion of the challenge next month. Apart from anything else, I've got to judge whether they have met the rules sufficiently, and although they just redid the umbrella, which was a little bit contentious before, I'm still not entirely convinced about a couple of the other ones. However, they do still have a chance to put that right, so we will wait and see what happens next time. As always, thank you to Accurist Watches for helping to keep time on our challenge and making sure that every photo is taken exactly on each hour. If you're looking for the perfect gift for someone special or even for yourself, then do check out Accurist.com to see their full range of men's and women's watches. Okay, well, before we fire up the next feature, I just wanted to remind you that as well as this monthly show, we also produce our monthly podcast, where myself and a couple of the team get together to chat about the latest photography-related news stories, embark on the world's best photography quiz, and look at interesting new items of gear on the market. This month's episode has just gone live, and I am joined by James and Marcus as we discuss a model who set himself on fire for a photo, overrated photography trends which people just pretend to love, as well as looking at a couple of new lens releases from Sigma. To hear all of that and so much more, just search for the Photography Online podcast, which is available to listen to for free on all the usual podcast platforms such as Spotify and Apple, but there is also a direct link in the video description down below. Right, well, if you like your gear, then this next feature will hopefully keep you glued to your screen. Teleconverters are marketed as an affordable way to get more reach from your lenses, but how well do they actually work? This is something that we've often asked ourselves, so we decided to do some tests to find out if you should go out and buy one or save your money for something else.
When you need that extra bit of reach on your telephoto lens, the trusty Teleconverter comes to the rescue. Available in many different magnifications, the most popular being ×1.4 and ×2, which, as you might expect, magnify the image by 40 and 100% respectively. Teleconverters are used mostly by wildlife and sport shooters to extend the length of their longer lenses and get them closer to their subjects. But they can also be found in the bags of many landscape photographers too.
But are they really worth the money? The downsides of teleconverters are that they lose light. They also degrade the image, as no teleconverter can improve the output of a lens. But as long as the magnification is greater than the loss in quality, you would think we would see a beneficial effect.
Before we do the test, I want to go over the kit I've got. I'm using a Canon 5D SR body, still the best camera Canon have ever made in terms of image quality. Amazing when you think that it's now 10 years old. I'm going to be using a 70 to 200mm zoom lens because I reckon this is probably the most popular focal length for people to use a teleconverter with. As for this, I'm using a Mark III Canon 1.4 teleconverter, which is the best available for this lens mount.
Now, it wouldn't be practical for us to do this test with lots of different brands of teleconverters, as not only would we need to get hold of all the different teleconverters, but we'd also need to get hold of the associated cameras and lenses to do the test as well. And the whole thing would be a bit of a headache. So we came up with a plan and asked some of our POOS who do have different brands of teleconverters to do the test for us and send us their results. Now, we'll have a look at those in a minute, but first of all, I want to do the test with my Canon EF 1.4 teleconverter.
There are a few things which I'm ensuring happen in order to get the very best quality out of this lens. Firstly, I'm shooting in RAW. I'm going to select f6.3 on the aperture, as that is where this lens is bitingly sharp. I'll then change that when I put the teleconverter on, so that it keeps the aperture in the lens the same physical size. I'm using my trusty Kingjoy A86 tripod, which is designed for maximum stability due to its thick legs and large top plate. I'm going to use the 2-second timer so that I'm not touching the camera at the moment of exposure. I'm going to manually focus using the 16x digital zoom and a loop. I'm turning off image stabilization. I've made sure I have no filters on the front, including any UV or skylight protection filters. I'm using a lens hood, one of the most underrated pieces of photography gear, as this will always help improve contrast, not to mention protecting your lens if you drop it. I've cleaned all the glass surfaces with a Photography Online lens cloth, and finally, I have chosen a day where there's good visibility, the air is clear and there is no wind. There's really not much else I can do to improve the quality of the photos, which are going to come out of this beast in the next couple of minutes.
Now, one final thing to explain is that many zoom lenses aren't ideally designed to be used with a teleconverter. Yes, they will work, but typically if you're using a teleconverter, you're going to be using your lens at its longest focal length, an area where many of them perform at their least sharp. So by adding a teleconverter to the back of that, all you're doing is magnifying all the weaknesses.
This lens, however, the 70-200mm f4 Mark II L-series lens from Canon, performs at its sharpest all the way to the longest end. So theoretically, it's a good potential to be used with a teleconverter.
But one thing which many photographers don't get is that if I add this 1.4 times teleconverter to the back of this 70-200mm f4 lens, then you might think that I'll end up with a 100-280mm f5.6 lens. And in theory, you would be correct. But in practical terms, I only really get a 200-280mm f5.6 lens, because anything less than 200mm, I already have that in the native lens, so this isn't really adding anything. So before you go out and buy one of these for several £100s, you have to weigh up what it's really going to give you in terms of an advantage to what you already have. So with this on the back of this lens, it's pointless of me using anything less than 150mm on the zoom range because I'm not gaining anything. Okay, enough techno babble. Let's get on with the test and find out the answer that we all want to know. Are these worth the money?
First up is the version with just the lens at its longest focal length. The aperture is f6.3 and the exposure time is 1/250th. The ISO will be 100 for both shots. Now, with the 1.4 times teleconverter fitted, I changed the aperture to f9 to keep everything consistent. Notice how the camera takes a second to settle after I press the shutter. This is the reason to use the 2-second timer.
Okay, so let's head back to the studio and analyse the results.
None of the photos you're about to see have been edited in any way. They are simply the raw files. This is the shot taken at 200mm at f6.3 without the teleconverter. And this is the same shot but with the teleconverter. If we zoom in to compare them, we can see an obvious difference. For example, without the teleconverter, it's not possible to make out the value on this speed restriction or read the text on this road sign. But looking at the teleconverter shot, the speed can easily be seen to be 20, and it's just about possible to read the road sign. Not bad when you consider that this is the full frame shot. So this shows that adding the Mark III version of the 1.4 times teleconverter from Canon to a decent lens does give you more detail. But with a stop less of light, this can only really be taken advantage of if using a tripod. Otherwise, you'd either be shooting at a wider aperture, a slower exposure time, or a higher ISO, all of which will work against you in various ways. So as to whether this small amount of extra detail is worth the few £100s and other drawbacks or not is up to you.
So we now know that this teleconverter at least does do what it says on the tin. But it wouldn't be fair or comprehensive unless we repeated the test with other brands. Thanks to a few POOS, we have the results from Nikon, Sony and Olympus. Let's take a look at the Nikon first.
Thanks to Andrew Quinn, who followed our 10 steps of instructions to make sure his shots were as close as they could be to our own test. We can see here the results of the Nikon 70-200mm f2.8 VRS lens on a Nikon Z9 body. This is the same shot, but with a Nikon Z 1.4 times teleconverter, costing almost £600 and boosting the 190mm focal length to 270mm. Here's the 100% zoom on the version without the teleconverter. And here is the same crop from the 1.4 teleconverter shot. There's an obvious loss of sharpness on this photo. So if we simply go back to the original shot and crop it by 40%, we get the same photo but with increased sharpness. Yes, we now have a smaller file, but if that's a problem for you, then simply interpolate it back up to its non-crop dimensions and Bob's your uncle. You've just saved £600. Andrew also did the same test with a Nikon 2x teleconverter on the same lens. And the results are even more obvious, with a better result being achieved by simply cropping the non-teleconverter image by 50% and then magnifying it back up. Staying with the Nikon, EJ did some tests for us with his Nikon Z50 Mark II, which is a 20 megapixel camera, so less than half that of the Z9 which we were just looking at. Here, EJ has used the same Nikon 70-200mm f2.8 VR lens and the same Nikon Z teleconverters, but we see a different outcome with both the 1.4 and the x2 both providing increased detail, as shown in the text on this billboard. This is because the low-resolution camera is not recording as much detail from the non-teleconverter shot, so the teleconverters are then able to add detail when they magnify the image. In other words, the output of the lens is superior to the capture capabilities of the camera. Whereas when used on the Z9, which is a 45 megapixel body, the sensor is superior to the output of the lens. So when this is magnified by the teleconverters, the image doesn't get any better. In fact, it gets worse. Now let's look at the Sony, thanks to Eddie Middleton who sent these results to us. Here's his standard shot taken with a Sony FE 300mm f2.8 GM lens on an A7R body, which is a whopping 61 megapixels. And here's the same shot with a Sony 1.4x teleconverter, which shows an obvious loss in detail. If we crop the original to match, then the original shot wins for sharpness. Eddie also did the same test with a Sony 2x teleconverter, and just as with the Nikon Z9 high megapixel body, the output just gets worse. Once again, if we crop the original image by half and then interpolate it back up to its native size, we end up with a better, crisper, sharper result than by using the 2x teleconverter. And finally, thanks to Morag Reed, who did the same test with her OM Systems gear. Here is her original shot using her OM 100-400 f5-6.3 lens on an OM1 Mark II body. And here's the same shot with an OM 1.4 teleconverter attached. We can see that this is nowhere near as detailed, probably because the output of the lens at the 400mm extreme end of its range falls short of the camera's potential, even though it's only a 20 megapixel body. So it's a complicated conclusion, but let's try to simplify it as best we can. Basically, if the output of your lens is inferior to the capability of your sensor, then there seems to be 0 point in using teleconverters. This is most likely to occur if you use a high megapixel camera with a zoom lens at its longest end, where it will typically be starting to fall short of its potential. The exception to this was the Canon 1.4x teleconverter, the Mark III, on the 70-200 f4L series lens, the Mark II. But that's only because this lens is renowned for being ridiculously sharp at the long end. So even on a 50 megapixel body, its output is still superior to the sensor, making the use of a teleconverter beneficial. Now, teleconverters should work better on primes than on zooms, but the prime still has to have an output which will be superior to the capability of the sensor. If you have a high-performing lens and a low megapixel camera, then teleconverters may be worth adding to your kit. We know that 2x teleconverters are definitely not as sharp as 1.4x, so if the output of your lens is similar to the capability of your sensor, then a 1.4 could be beneficial, but a x2 probably won't be, as it will tip the balance back in favour of the camera to outperform the lens. Got that? Whew! Can I have a sit down now?
So now you'll have to decide for yourselves if teleconverters are a worthy investment. We tried to make it simple, but sadly it just wasn't the case. If you like your gear related features, then we have another interesting one on next month's show, so do keep an eye out for that. Now, regular viewers will know that we always end every show with Analog Affairs, a feature centred around film photography. However, as I've often said, even if you only shoot digitally, which I know is the majority of you, that it is still well worth giving it a watch, as many of the principles we cover can be applied to digital as well. However, if you're tempted to give film photography a go, then we have an exciting new film-only workshop coming up at the start of next year. It's an 8-day workshop where you will spend the first 5 days taking photos on the Outer Hebrides and developing your film in the evenings. We stay in a private 19th century hunting lodge which is fully catered with the most amazing food, so you'll be guaranteed to be well looked after. Then we will transfer you to the capital of the Highlands, Inverness, where we will spend the final 2 days in a fully equipped darkroom where you'll be taught how to print your favourite photographs. Every participant will leave having not only learnt everything about film photography, but also in the proud possession of a selection of handmade prints which they have seen from concept through to completion without going anywhere near a pixel or a binary number. It doesn't matter whether you have got past years of experience shooting film and maybe want to rekindle an old love, or whether you've never shot film but want to see why it's the fastest growing area of photography today. This workshop is for everyone. We'll even have a selection of cameras for you to try, and we'll give everybody £100 worth of film to shoot. So if that all sounds interesting, there is a link to the dedicated page on our website, or get in touch to receive full details in our brochure. Alright, well, with all of that in mind, what happens if you want to make a traditional darkroom print but only have a digital camera? Well, I recently did exactly this. One of the annual trips that we run for Photography Online Adventures is a 4-night city break to Venice. Now, I somehow always manage to wangle myself onto this trip, and last time I got a shot which I think will look great on my wall. The thing is that I really want to print it in a traditional way, but I took the photo on my digital camera, so this poses a problem. But for every problem there is a solution, and in this case it's by printing something that's called a digital negative. Now, this will allow me to print the file in a traditional darkroom fashion, but it will also give me a couple of other options as well, something we'll come to in a few moments. First, I need to print my digital negative. Now, this is really quite easy if you have your own printer, but if not, then you can get it done by a pro lab, but you'll still need to prepare the file for them, so let's quickly look at how to do this. All I need to do is convert it to black and white, then invert the tones so that white becomes black and black becomes white, therefore resembling a negative. I then need to flip the image horizontally, as it will be reversed when I print it, so I need it to be back to front in order for it to end up the right way around. As it happens, it wouldn't really matter if this particular shot was backwards, as there's no text or identifiable landmarks, which might look wrong if they were back to front, but I think I prefer the prow facing to the right, so that's how I want the end result. Now, if you're getting your digital negative printed at a lab, this is now ready to be sent to them, but if you're printing your own like I am, you will need to get hold of some transparency paper which can go through your printer. I'm using Pictorico by Innova, which is ideal for this purpose. It is important that I print on the correct side, otherwise the ink won't dry and it'll smudge. Other than that, it's simply a case of loading the paper and pressing print. So I now have my digital negative. Now, you might be thinking that's pretty large for a negative, and you would be right, but if I was using a typical size negative in a darkroom, I'd also need to use an enlarger which would magnify the image through the lens. But the joy of having a negative this size is that I can skip the need for an enlarger, which is just as well because I don't have one. I'm going to make what's known as a contact print, where the negative is laid directly onto the light sensitive paper rather than projected onto it. The only downside is that my print can only ever be the same size as my negative, so if you're going to try this, it's important that you make sure the negative is the size that you want your print to be. Now the advantage of doing a contact print, other than not needing an enlarger, is that you can actually use lots of different printing methods if you want. You can use cyanotype, there's platinum, and you can use even salt as well, and they all give really unique results. But we're going to be starting off with the traditional silver gelatin method, and we're going to be using this Kentmere paper, which you can get from ilfordphoto.com or many other photo retailers as well. If you want to try this yourself at home, then there are 6 essential things you're going to need. Number 1, a light-tight room which you can prevent all stray light from entering. If you've got a bathroom without any windows, this will be the easiest place, as you will also need access to water. Number 2, a low-powered lamp. I'm using a desk lamp fitted with a fridge bulb. Number 3, 4 trays to process your print. The trays need to be big enough for your paper size to fit into without touching the sides. Number 4, a red safe light. This will allow you to see what you're doing in the dark. Number 5, a piece of clear glass which is big enough to cover your print. And number 6, 4 different chemicals, something we'll come to in a moment. So as well as these essentials, there are a couple of other bits that you don't need, but they will help you have more control over your photos. The first is a set of Ilford contrast filters available from ilfordphoto.com for only $13.38. The paper I'm using is a multi-grade one, which means I can control the contrast by using these filters. So without these, you'd have to control the contrast when you're preparing your digital file, but that's really awkward to do because it's a long time before you're actually going to be able to see the final result. The other thing that you might find useful is some dodging lollipops, like these ones, which I've just made out of card and wire. So I've got my 4 trays. I'm going to fill these 3 with chemicals and 1 with water, and this first one is going to hold my paper developer. As with everything here, this is available from ilfordphoto.com. A 500ml bottle costs £10.30 and will make 5 litres of developer. It's got a good shelf life, so it's going to last you for ages. The second one is my stop bath. Now this basically neutralises the developer and prevents it from continuing to activate the paper. This costs £10.44 for a 500ml bottle, which will make 10 litres of solution. And finally, there's the fixer, which prevents the paper from being light sensitive. A 500ml bottle costs £14.44. Now the developing chemicals that you're using, you can't actually use these for more than one session, so once you're done using them, you will need to discard these. However, the unmixed developer in the bottle itself, that will keep for over a year, which is fantastic. However, the mix stop and the mix fix, you can actually reuse these chemicals. So once you're done with these, pour them into an airtight bottle and you can use these again a number of times. The chemicals only need to be at room temperature, so there's no heating or cooling required. It's all really easy. So before I start doing the actual print, I just wanted to show you how I've modified this lamp. So basically, I've taped some card over the front here, and I've cut a little hole, as you can see in here. Now the bulb is actually inside here. Now what this means is that when I'm aiming down at my print, even though the print's underneath it, it's never actually getting direct light from the bulb, which is exactly what I want. I've also created a funky little filter holder up here so that I can choose to use these contrast filters if I want to. Alright, well I think it's time for the fun to begin, so let's turn the lights out. As this is the first time I'm printing this negative, I need to establish the correct exposure time to give me the perfect print. Now I could do this by trial and error, but the most economical way is to do what's known as a test strip, so let's do that first. Now it should be obvious, but I'll say it anyway, do not open your paper until you've turned the lights out. Now the paper isn't sensitive to red light, which is why you can have this light on, but any other light is going to cause the paper to react, which is not what you want. I'm going to cut one sheet into a few thin strips, which I can then use for tests in the future. So I've put the test strips along with all of the other paper in this light tight bag. I am obviously going to keep one of my test strips out so I can use it, but you do need to make sure everything else is in the bag, it's properly sealed up, and the lid is on before you put the lamp on, otherwise you're going to fog all the paper and you do not want that. I now lay the strip of paper under my negative and then place my sheet of glass on top. The glass just ensures there is good contact between the negative and the paper. One mistake you can easily make is to print on the wrong side of the paper, in which case no image will appear. To help avoid this, the light reactive side is usually glossier than the reverse side. To determine the correct exposure, I'm now going to expose different areas of this test strip for different times. I'm going to end up with steps from 10 to 50 seconds. So after putting this in the developer, the stop and the fix, this is what I've ended up with. Now looking at this, I can say that I probably want an exposure time of between 20 and 30 seconds. So let's give that a go and see what it looks like. If you're going to use your phone as a stopwatch, you need to make sure it's on minimum brightness and use one of many apps which display your screen in red. Once I've exposed the paper for the desired amount of time, I put it in the developing chemicals for 2 minutes. The image should appear after 15 seconds or so, but it's important to keep it in for the full amount of time to ensure there's full detail in the highlights. It's important to wear gloves or use tongs to remove the print from the various chemicals. Once the print is fully developed, it then gets transferred to the stop bath for around 30 seconds, but this doesn't have to be accurate, so there's no need to time it. Then finally, we transfer the print into the fixer. This should be done for around 4 minutes, but it is safe to turn the lights on to inspect your work after around 1 minute. My first attempt at 30 seconds is good in some places, but it's too dark in others, so I'm going to try again, but this time use my hand to place a shadow for a few seconds over the areas I want to appear brighter. This is the traditional method of dodging and burning. I printed this one at grade 3, which is giving me the desired amount of contrast, but I could increase the contrast by using a grade 4 or 5 filter, or reduce the contrast by using a grade 2, 1 or even a 0 filter. So it's taken me a few attempts, but I finally got a print that I really like sitting here in the tray. Now it's been through the washing process, and the final stage is to put some wetting agent on it, which is what it's doing now, and that basically just means that when it's drying there'll be no streak marks or anything like that, which will lead to a really nice finished product. So all I have to do is hang it up to dry for an hour or so, and then we'll take a look at it. So here it is. This is my final print, the result of playing about in the darkroom for a couple of hours on a rainy day. Such a fun way to spend time and just really learn the art of printing. Now this is a unique print. If I wanted to print this again, have another copy, I cannot just go up and press print and duplicate something. I actually have to go back, do this by hand again. So it makes it truly special. I had such a great time doing it, and if you've been inspired by it as well, I really recommend giving it a go. It's not that complicated, it's not that expensive. There's lots of tutorials out there, there's starter kits, things like that. And most of all, it's a lot more fun than looking at color profiles on Photoshop. So that was actually really good fun, and the resulting photo looks so much better than an inkjet print, so it's definitely something which I urge you to try if you're interested. You still have a couple of months before the long winter nights arrive, which is the best time to lock yourself in a darkened room. So if you start preparing now, you'll have hours of fun making prints that you can be proud of. I mentioned in that feature that once you have your digital negative, as well as doing a silver gelatin print like I did there, you can also do other processes such as cyanotypes. This is something which is actually even easier, as you can use the sun as your light source, and I'll be showing you how to do this on a future special feature which will only be available to our Photography Online official supporters. So if that sounds like it may be of interest, join our army of POOS now so that you don't miss out on all the extra bits like this which we do to reward those who help to make this show possible. As next month's show is the final one for this year, and also the final one in this format, something I'll be explaining more about next time, then we will be naming every single one of our POOS at the end of the show. So if you join now, you too can be included on the list. Talking of next month's show, we have a feature about what we reckon is the best value new camera on the market today. The team aim to complete their British Icons challenge, and I'll be explaining how next year will be very different for Photography Online. But don't worry, it's not a bad thing. Until then, take good care, but most of all, take good photos. Talking of next month's show, we have a feature about what we reckon is the best value new camera on the market today. The team aim to... So it's taken me a few attempts, but I've got one that I really like here in the tray. It took me... So it's taken a few attempts, but I finally got one that I really like, sitting in the tray here. I have washed it, it's been through that process, and the final stage is to put it in some wet agent, which is what it, yeah. Give it a shot. It's not hard to do, it's really not hard, it's not that expensive to do either, and I was going to say something really inspiring to finish up, but I need notes. Notes. Hang on, I need to just write 3 things down. Hang on.